is up. So Senator Giddens, please begin.
Okay, thank you, Roger, and thank you to everybody who's attending now and those that are on Facebook. It's great to be with you all back here at home in Blackhawk County. As cold as it is outside, there's not much for us to be doing outside, so it's good to be with you all inside and online here right now. So I'll just start by, it's been a few weeks since we've been together. I'll remind people of my committee assignments this year. I am on the Education Committee, and then at Transportation. I'm ranking member of Transportation, also on Veterans Affairs, ranking member of Veterans Affairs as well. State government, and then the Administration and Regulation Budget Subcommittee. Those are my 5 committee assignments this year. So by far and away the committee that and the work that has sucked most of the oxygen out of the room so far this session, for me anyway, has been the Education Committee and the bills that have flowed through that committee so far. And unfortunately, it's sad to report that you know, in my opinion, most of those have been bad bills for the state of Iowa, for our community, for our children, for our families, in most every way. So I know that the focus of tonight's forum is supposed to be the economy, right? We talked about that as the focus, but I mean, I was trying to think about that and what to say about the economy. The things that I think we should be doing for the economy right now, we're not doing. We should be working on better pandemic relief issues, and we're not. And my concern, honestly, is that a lot of this education work that's happening right now, a lot of the quote unquote reform that we're seeing go through for our K-12 education system, our Regents universities, is going to be damaging to our economy. I wonder how long we can continue to attract, you know, young, talented people to our communities. How long can we encourage them to stay in our communities? How can we attract you know, top talent to our universities, faculty members and staff and the like, when we have these sorts of policies that we're prioritizing as a state. So I think that has got to at some point have negative impacts on our economy as well. And so not only are we not doing the things that I think we need to be doing for relief associated with this pandemic that we're experiencing right now, I think that we're actually doing damage to our economy with education proposals and other things that are happening, you know, in Des Moines right now. So I'm assuming we'll have more time to talk about specifics of some of those things later. I won't harp on them now. In transportation, I said I'm ranking member of Transportation. One of the big things we've been trying to do for a couple of years now is a hands-free bill. I'm pleased to report that bill is now out of the Senate Transportation Committee. It's ready to move to the floor for full consideration in the Senate. I'm strongly supportive of that. Our public safety community has that as a top priority right now. Roger mentioned that he's a bicyclist and a bicycle advocate. That's something that bicycle groups have been advocating for. So I'm hoping we can get that done this year. There's also a couple of other bicycle related pieces of legislation that we're happy to see moving through the process this year. There's actually has been just overall a fair amount of activity in that committee. And with the really bad things I think are happening in education, it's kind of nice to have a committee like Transportation where most of the work is bipartisan and we can we can work together to get some good things done for the state. State government is another one that tends to be a little more contentious. We've got some things flowing through state government that not too happy about as well, including the constitutional amendment. It's a resolution to amend the Constitution to say that women do not explicitly say that women do not have the right to an abortion. Gotten tons and tons of email on that, so that's an area of concern as well. I didn't know that I would be able to fill up 6 or 7 minutes, but Joan appears to be telling me that I have, so I will cut it off there and pass to the next person. Thank you all.
And thank you, Senator Giddens. I forgot to mention Senator Giddens is from Senate District 30, Cedar Falls, Hudson, and a portion of Waterloo. We now have, I believe, 3 House members on, if I've been able to keep track of the participants. And so keeping again about 6 minutes, we'll start with Representative Bob Kresick from House District 59. If you're ready, Bob, tell us about what's happening in the session so far.
I'm sorry. I forgot to unmute. Yeah, Roger, thanks. I know you're a bicyclist and I love biking too. So there's some measures that we're working on. I know Eric said about the hands-free. The other one is electric bicycles. That was another issue that I worked on. But anyway, some of the committees I serve on is Commerce, Public Safety. I'm on the Transportation Committee. I'm ranking member of that. Then I'm also on the Transportation and the RIF Budget Committee. In the committee, we have regular standard committees, and then we have budget committees, and that's one of those. We recently, yesterday, we had the supplemental state aid proposal forward, and the whole process was somewhat frustrating because it's going to end up, and I'm sure others going to talk about it, but we're going to end up raising taxes, property taxes on locals because they just can't meet the money number. So that is not going to be good. Also, I'd share that one of the fairly important issues, and I think a lot of people will agree to that, is vaccinations. Right now, we're ranked 47th in the nation with regard to the number of people that are vaccinated. And so that's going to be a huge barrier. I've had some emails from senior citizens living in retirement centers and trying to get access to the vaccine. Hopefully we'll begin to see some kind of improvements take place with regard to vaccinations. I would say, oftentimes some of the proposals that are coming in from the majority party create some divide, and I just share that we've had that divide take place. There's been a few bills that, they have the one on the 1619 project that is currently used to help educate people about slavery, racism, and other things. It's a pretty effective tool, and they're wanting to eliminate that. And it's very frustrating to me just to sit and watch how people will come forward with proposals, and really they haven't reached out to the experts in those fields to get a better understanding of you know, the whole concept. So it's fairly frustrating, but, you know, I think Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember the day, we ran, I don't know, like 20 bills that were all unanimous support. So, you know, we end up at times doing those things, but it just seems like the divide that's taken place. One of the other areas that I've had significant frustrations with is my colleagues not wearing masks at the Capitol. And, you know, we've seen, we've had, I think the number is now 6 individuals that have tested positive for the virus at the Capitol. And, you know, it's kind of sad that we're not doing things to prevent that from occurring. And not only just to legislators, but there's a lot of staff there. There are a few visitors that come into the building. So, you know, I'm just hopeful that we can get through this session in a safe way. Vaccines are key to this. And, you know, hopefully we can begin to work on issues that are good for Iowa, especially during this pandemic, and not focus on the negative bills that have been introduced by some of my colleagues in the Iowa House. So I appreciate everyone's time coming to this, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Representative Kressig. I should mention that Sherry has posted on the chat the agenda. So if you don't have it in front of you, if you open your chat, it's right there. Also, if you have not yet muted, please mute yourself until it's time to speak so that we don't pick up background sound. So with that, we'll move to our next representative. Representative Dave Williams represents the other half of that Senate district. Bob has half and Dave has the other half of Eric's Senate district. Representative Williams, you have 6 minutes to tell us about what's happening in the legislature from your point of view.
Well, thank you. I'll do my best to talk for 6 minutes, which I'm not very good at. Thank you, everybody that's here with us live and that may be watching on Facebook later on. I probably should turn on video. There. So I'm glad to be here. It's a great opportunity to catch up and probably just think a little bit out loud. It was a pretty intense week, so I haven't done a lot of preparation for tonight. And one of the first things I need to mention is Representative Brown Powers is moving her office with her team. And she's predicting that it will be midnight before they complete that task. So she won't be able to make it, and maybe we can cover a little bit for her. As you know, we're pretty proud of the way the 4 of us work together as a team. And Bob's ranking on transportation, he's on commerce. Roz is ranking on education and is on ag with me. Timmy is ranking on, I'm drawing a blank, but she's an expert, as you all know, with healthcare. So we rely on her for the healthcare, and then of course she and Bob team up on mental health. So we all work well together, and as you can see, Roz just mentioned she's ranking on natural resources. See, we're a team. Thanks, Rep Smith. So as a reminder, my committees are a new committee this year called Information Technology, which I'm ranking member of, and is a spinoff mostly from Commerce. So Commerce still has plenty to do, and we're finding all kinds of things to work on in information technology. One thing that's been interesting there is, I will say that we've been quite nonpartisan as we've worked together on these first few bills. And it's kind of interesting as we collaborate amongst the representatives and work with the lobby, who brings us obviously their own positions, quite often opposing positions, and then we try to sort those things out. So that's been an interesting dynamic here in these first five weeks. The governor's broadband bill, we're still calling it that. I don't know what it's going to be called when we get done. Went to subcommittee Tuesday. I kept that assignment for myself. Broadband is kind of my thing, so to speak. So we had the subcommittee on it. It hasn't gone to committee yet, and there's a tremendous amount of discussion going on about the substance of that bill. And basically what it will do is it'll lay out a structure for grants to underserved areas across Iowa and provide different amounts of incentives depending on the degree of how far or how much a particular area is underserved. And then the separate conversation will be about how much funding is going to be provided for those grants. So we'll continue that discussion. Unfortunately, for those of us who live in Hudson, Waterloo, or Cedar Falls, it probably won't affect us directly, but as we roll out broadband across the state, it will be a quality of life thing. We can use it for telehealth, allow people to live in small towns, those kind of things. And as you may know, the federal government is flowing billions of dollars for broadband across the country. So it's been interesting to work on that. And then, we've had a couple of minor bills, for instance, setting up rules for allowing autonomous delivery vehicles on sidewalks. It would be like a large igloo cooler, which would deliver to your house. And it was interesting. I had a chance to get input from former Representative Willard Jenkins. He had the idea of being able to use these in retirement communities. So that was interesting to work on. So I better hurry up here because I think I'm going to fill my time. Also serving on agriculture, which luckily I can't talk about the bill that Renata is not going to like. And then my third committee is Education Budget Subcommittee, which we've been getting requests and information about the region's universities, junior colleges, private colleges, things like that. So looking forward to more discussion. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Representative Williams. And finally, I believe our last legislator on with us tonight is Representative Ross Smith from House District 62. So Ross, take it away for about 6 minutes on what's happening from your point of view.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you everybody for joining this evening. Hope you're all staying warm. I probably won't use all 6 minutes, just a heads up. I'm trying to be as brief as possible on most things that I do and save time for some questions. But a few things that have been keeping us all busy this week, I think, has been education. I do serve as a ranking member in the House on the Education Committee. And last night we did pass a school funding proposal. But just to keep you all aware that we are out of compliance. So once again, the legislature has broken the law. As of January 12th, that's day one, and we're supposed to have passed school funding within 30 days, passed school funding and have it enacted within 30 days of the governor proposing her budget. So day 30 would have been February 10th as we adjourned session that day. We had not passed the school funding legislation through the House and the Senate, therefore out of compliance. For me, this is something that we have to make a bigger deal of. The majority party has made this a habitual thing. This has been done year after year after year. What's the point of having a law on the books if there's no consequence? So I think it's important for the general public to know that because that deadline is set so our school districts have ample time to prepare for the upcoming school year. With this year, we know going to be one of the most difficult and challenging as how we try to deal with the enrollment crisis that we have, and our schools have been significantly underfunded and will be again going into this upcoming year. Other things that we're working on in the House Education Committee is working to stop vouchers. As of right now, we have not come to the House Education Committee. We're still going to keep pressure up on that. I'm not going to brag about any work until we're in the safe zone on that, and I don't know when that will be. As long as we have the Republican trifecta in the state of Iowa, I think we'll always be fighting back against vouchers. So it's important that we keep up public pressure both within the Capitol and all social media and amongst our activist groups in our communities. Some other things that we've seen in kind of a developing trend has been the disposition for the majority party to ban things that are voluntary and seek to take away funding for institutions that don't do what they like. A couple good examples of this. So there are 5 school districts across our state that utilize voluntary diversity plans. Waterloo Community School District, Davenport, Des Moines, Postville, and West Liberty. All these communities utilize voluntary, right? The key word there is voluntary diversity plans based on data that shows that their student populations actually perform better when they're in a more diverse environment within the school district. And so Waterloo and all these other districts have utilized this to really make sure that student outcomes are the best they can be for their community. The state has utilized overreach once again and banned these voluntary practices. We also had a subcommittee that I sat on for the 1619 curriculum. And we have to be clear that this is not a set curriculum that is replacing a history curriculum in the schools. That's not the case. The 1619 project is a series of essays that does challenge us to think differently about the founding of our country. And one of the pushbacks was that is riddled with inaccuracies, and I think some of that is perspective. I think if there is credence to some of those arguments, I think that's important that we know that and that we don't teach inaccuracies to our students. But I also challenge that because we have history textbooks that still teach that Columbus discovered America, and we know that's not true. And so if we're going to talk about truth, let's talk about truth in a holistic manner, and I'm going to continue to push for that narrative. I think also this is something that's fueled by former President Trump. As we've seen, this is not specific to Iowa. It hits us a little closer here in my legislative district, right? Because the author, the Pulitzer Prize winner, Nicole Hannah-Jones, is a Waterloo native, went to West High, lived in Waterloo. And so for me, we should have pride in the fact that we have a Waterloo native that's doing great work, and it's really pushing to help our students become critical thinkers. Another thing that we're looking at, or that passed committee, which is really disappointing, was getting rid of tenure for our region schools. We know that during COVID, University of Iowa has been extremely helpful in developing a COVID vaccine, and that took place because of 10-year professors, right, and scientists who work at the University of Iowa. University of Northern Iowa, right? We have metal casting in our professors like Professor Eric Giddens, right, who work to help push forward, whether it be environmental or conservation practices that we know move the needle forward for our great state. University or Iowa State University, right, when we talk about the vet lab, we're critical. 10-year professors were critical for stopping the African swine flu from spreading across our state. And so tenure brings billions and billions of dollars of investment and research into our state every year. It would be beyond catastrophic for us to lose that economic infusion into our state. And so I believe it's really, really short-sighted, and we'd be the only state in the nation to do that at a time where you and I are searching for a provost, University of Iowa searching for a president, and we'll make that search really, really difficult. In agriculture, we've had some decent bills that look for tax credits for new farmers. I'm hopeful that right now it's not just for row crop, which is exciting. So maybe some young people like me can maybe purchase some of this land and use it for conservation practices if we're able to. And IT, I'll let Representative Williams talk more about that as he is the ranking member. And then in natural resources, where Representative Brown Powers is the ranking member, we did pass through the House a lifetime trout fishing license, which I know my dad is excited about. So that's kind of the quick rundown of what we have. And I used 6 minutes. Believe it or not, it goes fast, Eric. You're right. I think you're muted, Roger.
You're still muted, Roger.
Sorry. Thank you. As I was saying, is there any other representative that we have not yet recognized or senator that is on that I haven't picked up? If not, we're ready to move to the next portion of the agenda, and that is the main topic tonight, the economy, and 2 subtopics that you can deal with in addition to the overall topic, the pandemic recovery and taxes and tax cuts. And so I would like to have the legislators address that. And we'll start with Representative Williams, if you're ready. You've got about 8 minutes to focus on those topics related to economy.
Well, thank you. And I certainly wish Senator Dotzler were online because, we talk about the House having the team of 4, but we're also a team of 6. And Senator Dotzler is the expert on economic development. And I know I'm going to get help from all the other counterparts that are on here tonight. But I'll take a shot at this. And we may not all see eye to eye on this, so this is going to be interesting. So from the economy standpoint, and maybe I'll start with some basics, and that is, as Rep. Kressig mentioned, we're really disappointed that we're outlawing things that should be voluntary and not working on COVID. And so this week, the Democratic caucus submitted, I think it was 11 bills focused on COVID relief and a wide range of areas having to do with getting kids back in school safely, setting up COVID vaccination registration, support for small businesses and individuals, insurance, make sure that injections are covered by insurance, those kind of things. So, and a lot of these would help the economy get us back going again and get people back in the workforce. So, that part's been really good. And then in preparation for this, I was looking at the state Chamber of Commerce. It's called the Alliance. I can't see the Iowa Chamber Alliance, which Carrie Dara, our local leader for Grow Cedar Valley, is the president of that this year. And it's really interesting from a policy standpoint, how things line up from the business community, from the majority party, and from the Democratic caucus. The two things that came up when the businesses were surveyed was mental health and healthcare. And then they go on to talk about broadband, which we've already heard enough about tonight. But generally, social policy issues that would get our economy back on track, or the reason I hesitate is because we really haven't been back on track. Our growth is slower than everybody in the Midwest except for Illinois. But we are holding ourselves back with these social policy things that won't let our economy take off, because the jobs are there. President Nook from UNI talks just about every time I hear him about the gap in jobs that are going to exist, and it's going to get worse because we're talking about middle skill jobs and also jobs that come from 4-year degrees. So and our enrollments in post-secondary are going down, and the number of jobs are increasing. So we need these social policies in order to encourage people to come here to the state, or maybe stay in the state without leaving. So it's really interesting to see that these policies pretty well line up. Unfortunately, then when it comes time to fund these things, and I'm not a spendthrift. We could have spent another couple $100 million and still had a surplus this time around. And those kinds of funds would really inject some energy into the economy and let people go to work, would help them with childcare. Oh, that was another big one with the chamber, was mental health, healthcare, and childcare. These are all things that are putting a damper on our economy. So the majority party is just not, in my opinion, looking at the long-term ramifications of what their policies are doing. I guess one other thing I would mention is I have been a little frustrated in the caucus because last 2 years there was a representative with majority, Representative Carlson, who I could work with, and we talked the same language when it came to the business side of things. And he retired, and it's hard to find anybody there that I can talk with and find out and try to understand what's going on. So, so from an economy standpoint, policies are there. The funding in these social areas just isn't there. And you mentioned COVID. So, and I mentioned this COVID relief package that we would like to see get the light of day. Not optimistic about that. So did I answer the questions?
Well, one other subtopic was unemployment, or maybe employment as well as unemployment. I don't know if there's anything going workers' comp wise. Those would also be economy.
Yeah. So, and of course, the governor brags about how low the unemployment rate is, but people have left the market. And quite frankly, I don't know the statistics. I do know that we've got an issue with benefits that people who can't work for one reason or another. But quite frankly, I'll have to defer to my my counterparts on just exactly where we stand on that.
Fine, thank you very much, Representative Williams. How about Representative Kressig? Would you like to weigh in on those economy-related topics? And according to the agenda, it was pandemic, unemployment, small business, as well as taxes and tax cuts.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. I appreciate that. And well, I think one of the more frustrating aspects that I've experienced this session has been really their reluctance to work on these issues. I haven't seen really any bills that have come through and voted on the floor that are focused on recovery, unemployment issues, and small businesses. You know, the small business segment has been one that I have heard quite a bit about. You know, a lot of these small businesses are struggling because of the lack of people coming to their small business. And a lot of them are, well, downtown Cedar Falls, they've got quite a few businesses that are dependent on people in the store. And so they're really struggling. And, you know, we have the resources. We have about 350 million in ending balance and about $700 million in our rainy day coffers. So, you know, the whole concept, it's a rainy day. Well, guess what? Well, not today so much. Not much rain going around here, but we're having people that are business owners across the state that are struggling. And there are things that we should be addressing right now, other than some of the proposals that have come forward. You know, it's fairly frustrating to me. The unemployment numbers are, you know, they're still high. You know, one of the big barriers to that is people, you know, the unemployment numbers don't always reflect the numbers of people that aren't working. You know, once you get off the unemployment numbers, that's the one that detects that. So I'll just tell you, there are countless numbers of people that are struggling for just the daily needs that they have in their lives. Food, you know, it's got to be their ability to pay rent or their property. So, I mean, there are so many more things we should be doing during this pandemic instead of some of the really outlandish proposals that I've seen by the majority party. It's fairly frustrating to me. And so I'm hopeful that, you know, public pressure plays a role in this process. We have seen that. I would say that the issue relative to the vouchers proposal that's come, there have been some of the majority party are reluctant to do it in the House. The Senate already, you know, has been on board with it. But I think those are roles that we can all play. Reach out to your legislator, share your concerns, share your issues, and I think that's a major role you can all play. So.
Okay, thank you, Representative Kresick. We'll go now to Representative Smith, and 8 minutes or so to address the economy issues on the agendas listed: pandemic recovery, unemployment, small business, etc., taxes and tax cuts. So take it away, Representative Smith.
All right, so I will start off. I may not dive so much into taxes. I haven't seen a lot of those proposals thus far. I'm not the foremost expert on some of that, but I do lean on our team and like Representative Williams. But I will say that if that is in the future for the majority party, I think that's a grave mistake. Now I can say on the local end regarding taxes, though, the underfunding of schools by the state does put a local property tax burden on roughly 140 or so communities across the state. So we have to be mindful of that, that our local property taxes, and also be mindful that the state of Iowa has put a cap on how much you can raise property taxes. So for cities like Waterloo, who are already near that cap, there really is no space to go. And we have to be mindful of that because of what position that puts our city in and our local constituents in. Outside of that's, I'll leave the tax conversation there unless we want to go a little bit further, and I'll kick it to Dave. But outside of that, I will say that the House Democrats have proposed about $100 million for small business relief to go to employers with 50 or less employees. Ideally, I would prefer to see that be 25 or less employees to be a little more targeted. But I do understand the general need for that. I think we're focusing on restaurants, bars, retail. Those are the businesses that have been really hurt by COVID, because like Bob said, they need people to be in there. They need that commerce. They need those interactions and relationships to really drive the economy in there. Also, I would talk about the unemployment rate. It's a little bit tricky. I think that right now we have a low unemployment rate. What that also means is that our ability for businesses to expand is pretty funneled and siloed. If we don't have any employees to hire, how can we expand our businesses? And I had conversations with a couple of groups and roundtables in Dubuque talking about this issue specifically. We have an employer there who's looking to gain 15 employees that they can't find, but they have a new developer who wants to come and start a new business, and they need 150 employees. And so we have to be mindful of how we attract new talent if we don't have the people to actually hire. I will also say that we have individuals who are employed at more than one place, and that artificially makes the unemployment rate a bit lower. But I do believe there are some things that we can do. Representative Williams did refer to some of the social things that can make Iowa a more attractive place. I also think we need to employ our young people. I think there's lots of opportunities in the state for young people to get to work, because we have a lot of people under the age of 18 whose income does support their families. And I think that's a really, really critical thing for us to talk about as we move forward into the next decade, because that's going to be really, really impactful if the minimum wage increases are going to be stair-step and take some time to really kick in. When we also want to talk about unemployment, there's a trend right now that we're seeing during COVID of women leaving the workplace, but they're also not work seeking. And so that also makes the unemployment rate, it's a little bit fuzzy there, because if you're not seeking a job, you don't get counted towards unemployment. But the reason that women are disproportionately leaving the workforce is because of a shortage in the access of childcare. COVID has made it so a lot of our families and our young people are staying home. And because of the typical quote unquote Americana that we see, it's usually the mom that stays home. And that's unfortunate, because women contribute so much to our workforce and don't make the same wages. So this is really doubling down on something that we have to be mindful of and have to make a conscious effort to stop and show women that they are valued in their workplace, and we need to be moving heaven and earth to make sure they feel valued there as men doing this work. Lastly, I am working with the majority party to allow business owners who were unable to stay open during COVID or maintain their brick and mortar to really sell goods from their home and exceed that cap of $30,000 a year on the revenue. I think we need to do everything we can to get some of this regulation that's a little bit archaic out of the way, so that Iowa can start generating economy and our small business owners are empowered to really go out there and take risk. But the only way that the individuals can take risk in the state is if we feel as though our state has our back and we're empowered to. Right now, I don't think a lot of business owners has that confidence in our state, seeing as how we're sitting on nearly $1 billion and we haven't spent a dime to give them any kind of relief during COVID.
Okay, Thank you, Representative Smith. We're moving faster than the schedule would allow, which is fine because it'll allow more time for public discussion at the end. We'll go to Senator Giddens in just a moment, but while we do, if you have a question or a comment pertaining to either the agenda topics or to any issue, please type it in the chat now and submit it, because once Senator Giddens is finished, we'll be ready for that portion of the agenda. So that gives you his 8 minutes to prepare your thoughts if you have something you want to submit. It can be on the agenda topic, the economy topic, subtopics, or on any general issue or topic, question or a comment. And with that, we'll go to Senator Giddens for your opportunity to address the topic, the economy, pandemic recovery, unemployment, small business, et cetera, taxes, tax cut.
Okay, thanks, Roger. Most things it sounds like have been said by my House colleagues here, but I'll try to fill in some cracks maybe, and I may repeat some of the things they've already said, but that's fine, I think. I will say that Senate Democrats, our caucus in the Senate, kind of put together an agenda. I heard Representative Williams say that their caucus submitted a list of bills that related to pandemic relief, I believe was the point there, that may or may not get considered. We've done the same thing in the Senate, and I could kind of broadly categorize those under two headings. One of them would be help folks that are hurting right now, kind of a series of policy proposals that are sort of immediate impact things. And then, our vision for after we begin to recover from all of this, how we're going to build back, and do it in a better way than what we have in the past. So, a list of things under that would be the immediate things. One of the things we thought we should have done right away to address this pandemic would have been food assistance, immediate food assistance for folks that are hungry right now. And that proposal hasn't been taken up. You mentioned, unemployment. You were asking about that. I actually co-sponsored a bill to make unemployment payments exempt from income tax in the state of Iowa right now. Unemployment is federally taxable, and currently it would be taxed by the state as well. We'd like to make it tax exempt from income tax in the state so that folks could have more of that money in their pockets, not have to pay income tax on that. Business relief, Representative Kressig mentioned small business relief. We've got to do all we can to try to help keep our small businesses afloat through this thing. We know we've already lost a lot of them that aren't going to be able to come back. There are some programs that are being run by the Iowa Economic Development Authority right now to help small businesses. We need to continue to support that that programming with sufficient appropriation to help folks trying to just keep their doors open through this thing. And then under, Build Back Better, childcare, broadband, we'd like to see, some workers' issues happen, like better pay. Representative Smith talked about that. Workplace protections, those have been eroded over the years. We'd like to get back to a point where we value our workers better. Backing up, the child care and broadband issues have been touched on, especially the broadband. Representative Williams is such an expert in that, and I'm so pleased that he is leading that effort over for the Democrats over in the House as ranking member of this new Information Technology Committee that they have. We don't have an equivalent committee in the Senate, but we're going to lean on them for their expertise and the work that he's doing over in the House. So that's a list of kind of a wish list for Senate Democrats, I'd say. I mentioned in my opening remarks earlier that as far as I'm concerned, we really need better education policies if we really want long-term economic growth in this state. I just don't see the types of policy proposals that are being put forward as helping us grow our economy here in the state of Iowa. Related to taxes, Representative Smith mentioned this proposal right now for school funding, for K-12 funding this year is going to drive up property taxes at the local level. We have the figures, 134 districts, something like that, are going to see property tax increases this year due to underfunding from the state government, essentially. That's how it works. Those districts are going to be on what's called budget guarantee because of declining enrollment due to the pandemic. Budget guarantee is fine. It allows them to keep the same budget from the previous year, but the only way to make up the shortfall if the state doesn't fund it fully is to raise local property taxes. And so that's what's going to kick in for places across the state. And that affects all of us that own property. K-12, or sorry, the regents, the issues we're seeing with the regents universities, I think if those things become law, it's just going to be devastating for attracting talent to our universities. And I think that's going to have a terrible negative impact on our economy as well. I will say, Representative Williams talked about the chamber or the Iowa Alliance, Chamber Alliance group and their priorities. One of the catchphrases now is placemaking. It's kind of a term just meant about supporting efforts at the local level to make communities more attractive places to live. We hear a lot about that. I haven't seen very many proposals to support that so far this year in the legislature. I will, as far as workforce goes, that's an economic or an economy topic. I wanted to share really quickly that I've been working on a project with, it's kind of a behind the scenes at this point, a bipartisan conversation that's going on to support, to try to support with state level action, the expansion of a program that we have in Cedar Falls right now in the Cedar Falls School District called CAPS, which is an acronym for the Center for Advanced Professional Studies. And it's essentially an apprenticeship program for high school students to work in employment type situations out in the community with employers for high school and some dual enrollment credit as well. It's been wildly successful the last couple of years. There's interest across the state and in other parts of the state setting up similar programs, and we think that we might be able to do some things at the state level with some legislative action that could help support that type of program in other places in the state as well. And so I'm excited to be able to help work on that. I think that's a good workforce issue that could help support our economy. Don't know how much more time I've got, but on the taxes issue, I'm not on Ways and Means this year, so I'm not on the front line of hearing tax policy discussions in the Senate. We do know, though, that the governor's proposal for increasing the sales tax and decreasing income taxes by a commensurate amount, that proposal was shelved early on in the session. We don't think we're going to see that happen this year. Pretty sure we're not. There are some other, kind of specific tax policy things that could happen. One of them is the sales tax exemption for food banks. We've talked about that on our legislative forums before. We'd love to see that happen. That would have a really great impact on allowing food banks to purchase more food and serve more hungry Iowans across the state, up to 1 million meals a year if that was enacted. And then something that I'm really interested in, I know my time's up, but the extension of the solar tax credit is something that I'm very interested in seeing happen. I'm not on the Commerce Committee, which I believe is where that's flowing through right now, but I'm trying to follow that as closely as I can. We'd love to see that that tax credit extended. And another issue is decoupling it from the federal tax credit, so that it's no longer tied to what the federal government does, but that we can be autonomous with our own tax credit here in Iowa. And I think I'll leave economy and tax issues at that, and we can move on to taking some questions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Senator Giddens. Well, we are quite far ahead of schedule, actually, which is just fine. The first question that's been submitted, and by the way, those of you on Facebook, you have the ability to submit a question also. I'm just not the person to tell you how to do that, but I'm told that that does work. In fact, the question I'm going to go to right now came in from a Facebook viewer. The question, and any of the legislators can respond to this, and maybe all if you wish, but is, when did legislators start assuming the power to determine the curriculum in our schools, especially regarding, say, for example, the 1619 project? Any of the legislators like to comment on that?
I think it was when they saw the threats for critical thinking for our students challenged to their really narrow thought processes about what America should look like. You know, these challenges to curb our students' abilities to really dive deep and have critical debate in the classroom about the trajectory of our country and what they see in their perceptions of it is really how communities flourish, right? How we move our nation forward. But they're also, right, the inability to do that, right? The threat to really funnel curriculum and really say you can learn this but not this is a really dangerous place to be. Right, before World War II, there were people who burned books and banned Einstein, right? So we have to be mindful of what trajectory that and what path that sets us on as a country. But it's not unique to Iowa. And this is a national trend that we're seeing. And the thing that makes it unique here in our state is that it's becoming really punitive. Right now, Representative Wheeler and Salmon have a bill in education that has not got a subcommittee yet. But if you're an educator and you teach something that they think is quote unquote harmful, and I'm not sure how they define harmful, you can get a Class C or D felony. And that's really, really important, because if we're going to threaten to lock up educators, we're already short of teachers in the state of Iowa. It's hard to recruit educators in Iowa, especially because of Minnesota, right? So this is just adding to an already snowballing issue. And so for me, I think it's really short-sighted, but it is punitive, and I think we're going to see more of it, unfortunately, in the upcoming weeks.
Thank you, Representative Smith. Who else? Go ahead.
I'll dive in. I just think it's outright dangerous. This is not the direction that we need to be going with education policy in any way. I actually have a copy of the 1619 project right here. I'm proud to have read it. It's a wonderful piece of journalism. You know, we should be incredibly proud that Nicole Hannah-Jones is a community member of ours here, an Iowan. And I honestly wonder if any of the folks that are so opposed to this have even read it. I wonder if they have, you know. It really kind of gets me going that the legislature thinks that it can insert itself in what materials we teach, what specific materials we teach in a classroom in this state. Especially having taught myself, you know, and knowing it from that angle. I'm not teaching right now, but it's dangerous, and it's taken that concept of censorship to a whole, you know, new level. And I don't want to have any part of it, and I'm going to stand up and fight against it. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Senator Giddens. Anyone else that would like
Yeah,
to?
Roger, this is Bob.
Go ahead.
I think I can add to that. And what I've seen in the last couple sessions, in particular in this session, is we're having legislators that are taking the authority and ability that they have and just deciding to run bills. And the one that Representative Wheeler filed on the 1619 project, really, I don't think he really understands the negative impacts to what his bill would do. You know, I know East Waterloo is offering it. Other schools are around the state. And there's benefits to students to listen and learn about some of the issues that are occurring with racism and other issues. So I think that's really was my perspective. I don't think they really understand, and they just go in there with their own idea. They typically don't listen to input on some of those issues, and so that's my perspective.
Okay, thank you, Representative Kressick. Yes, Dave, go ahead. Dave Williams, your hand's up.
Thank you. Just to put a little bit of a cap on this, first, it would be great if the senators and representatives from the surrounding area would participate and help to explain what is the thinking going on with the majority party. So if anybody gets word that we're having these discussions, I would love to hear another perspective. And then I'll just cap it by saying, I think it's Representative Smith has mentioned a couple times, speak up with personal messages to other legislators outside of your own districts. And that was one reason for mentioning the having other perspectives here, is that I think that most of the people that I'm speaking with tonight, our local team, probably are of similar mind. We're opposed to these policies, and public opinion does make a difference. I haven't seen it yet, but I understand on Iowa Press tonight, the House Education Committee chair, I don't know, Roz, if you're on there also, but Representative Height mentioned one controversial bill that probably won't be brought to committee in the Education Committee. My point is that public opinion does make a difference, and if you reach out with a paragraph or two of just a personal email, because you know that the person you're writing to is going to know the issues. They just need to know that you're a reasonable person, and what do you think about that? So that would be my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Williams.
I don't want to labor the point, Roger, but I do think it's Representative Kressick brought up an interesting topic about them maybe not understanding and not asking questions and really caring to hear. I think it's important for us to understand that. I do believe they understand the consequences. I do think that they're not doing this unintentionally. This is purposeful because the greatest threat to their power is an informed voter base. It's young people who can think differently than they've been taught by rudimentary lessons. And so if you sat in a subcommittee with Representative Wheeler and how he talked about everything except for the things that are in the 1619 project, right? About Planned Parenthood, he talked about it being a piece of leftist propaganda. The goal for them is to preserve power as long as possible. One of the greatest threats to their ability to have power is people being informed about what the truth is and that would exist. If you can make truth irrelevant, you can stay in power for a long, long time. And that's their goal. And so I don't want to discount the fervor in which they're doing that, because we have to have the same effort and energy towards undoing what they're doing. And I think that's extremely important for us to know what we're fighting against.
Thank you, Representative Smith. We have a couple of questions, some coming in on Facebook, and apparently you can go to the comments section on Facebook to submit your question. One of them, there are two funding related questions. We'll take one and then the other separately. The first one is regarding funding, increasing the fixed reimbursement rate for providers of mental health or home health services. That currently that rate is so low that it is about impossible to hire support professionals and have them maintain a standard of living. So if you understand the question, I've had to paraphrase it quite a bit, but is there any thought about increasing funding for these providers for mental health or home health services?
Where is Representative Powers?
I could
I
just
figured that.
I could just touch base on that. I've had some interactions with quite a few mental health providers over the years, and they have seen real barriers in the reimbursement of services. And also, if you know, the Medicaid privatization has caused some really significant issues for them to get access to services. So I have not heard that the majority party has filed a bill to increase those things. I do know one area, though, that I would touch on that is getting a lot of traction is telehealth. And telehealth is one of those that would allow mental health providers to get paid for their services, and also would help them with cost relative to providing those services. So I'm really hopeful that the majority party, and one of the big barriers to mental health in our state today has been the lack of the state putting funding dollars in place for mental health services in the state. There's a lot more that we can do to get services readily available. If you need critical care access for mental health services, there should be a provider that you can go to here locally and get access. And if you have a child, early prevention with mental health plays a significant role. So I think we need to really step up, and mental health has really formulated with the pandemic. It's really been a significant issue for a lot of people. They're stuck in their homes, they can't go out, kids aren't able to get to school. So it's a real issue, and I'm hopeful that we can address that issue as we go forward.
Okay, just to clarify, the question was related to both home health as well as mental health services. The reimbursement rate is too low for direct support professional wages.
Well, I think, the home health too, I know that's been an issue going forward, but I'm not really all that familiar with the home health. I'm more familiar with the mental health. That's why I approached that, Roger.
Any other legislator would like to respond? Thank you, Representative Kresick.
Yeah, I'll just say what Representative Brown Powers always says: you can't make money off people with long-term disabilities, right? And unfortunately, when our state switched to a privatized system, that was the goal. Right. Private industry's goal is to make money. You can't do that with people who have long-term illnesses, and unfortunately, we've seen a lack of investment. But we've also seen some pretty shady practices regarding the governor and some of her contracts with providers. And so right now, it's hard to be a service provider in our communities because the reimbursement rates are so low. And when that happens, it's the perfect storm of lack of resources, lack of accessibility, and a system that does not really benefit the individual and the people who need the help, who need the care. Brain health issues have gone through the roof. I'm excited that the federal government is going to really take this seriously, but Iowa has to position itself to be ready to receive support, be open to receiving support, and then distribute those dollars in a way that makes sure that every Iowan has access. Because for those of us in Waterloo and Cedar Falls and Des Moines, we may still be able to find a provider, but if you're in some of those counties out west, you may not have access. And it's important for all of us to, because the system doesn't work if one part is failing.
Thank you, Representative Smith. The next question is partially funding maybe, but it's also could be broader than that. Any chance of legislation this year regarding disability related issues?
this isn't helpful, but I'll just say that I don't know of any in the Senate, just so folks know about that. I haven't heard of anything advancing in the Senate.
And I haven't heard anything much in the House. So the majority party is again focused on their policies that are negative in a lot of ways. And so that's a good question. And Eric Donat, I appreciate that question. And I know you're an advocate of those issues. And of course, someone living with disability, it's something that we need to address.
Okay, the next question goes a different direction. It's related to the higher education issues. And it's how will the legislation against higher education entities, that is tenure, polling, a political party, etc., impact the state university's ability to attract professors, grants for research, etc.? So how will that impact our 3 state universities? Who would like to go first?
I'll take it first. I've already said it. I think it'll be devastating. I mean, just imagine you're trying to recruit faculty to do, research to Iowa State University. They say you got a talented young person who's trying to, doesn't have to be young, but trying to get a job at a university, new PhD, let's say, and they have opportunity to go to several different universities across the country. And we have a system here where we don't recognize tenure. We make you tell us what political party you belong to before you get hired. I was quickly gonna go to the bottom of the list for those folks, and they're not gonna want to come here. Right. And so we very quickly lose our ability to compete for top talent at all 3 of our Regents universities. It's terrible, and it's not just the research that comes out of the universities itself, but the impact that our universities have on our economy is enormous. Billions of dollars worth of economic activity associated with our 3 Regents universities, and all of it could be in jeopardy because of these things. I don't mean to be overly dramatic, but I really think it could potentially have that sort of consequence, so I'll leave it at that.
Anyone else wish to? Yeah, so go ahead, Dave. Representative.
Yeah, I sit on the education budget subcommittee, and even though tenure necessarily isn't a budget issue, when we had the 3 presidents in from the Regents universities, someone asked this question, and I shouldn't be smiling about such a serious issue, but the presidents have to be bipartisan and work with everybody, right, to advocate for their universities. I tell you what, the tenure question got them all going. There was no doubt about what their university presidents think of this crazy idea. So that's another case where public opinion is going to help, but I'll tell you that the leadership of the universities is dead set against it.
Okay, thank you, Representative Williams.
Roger, this
Yes,
is Bob. Briefly, I just want to share, I received an email from a faculty member at the University of Northern Iowa who laid it out that he was a Republican and shared some of the things that he supported over the years, but he also shared that the tenure process that they've introduced is one that he sees it as going to be a major barrier to our region schools. We'll see. I think it's the only state that has approached this process, and he shared that there will be large numbers of faculty leaving the school and going somewhere else. So I think it would be really harmful to our region's universities.
Okay, thank you, Representative Cressy. Can we get a clarification? We have a question come in. I live in House District 63. Did I understand correctly that Representative Salmon is a co-sponsor of the bill making the teaching of the quote wrong curriculum, quote unquote wrong curriculum material a felony, and that is specifically targeting the 1619 project? Was that properly understood? Can someone clarify that?
So that legislation is actually a separate bill that's not the 1619 project, believe it or not. So, right, we have a lot of different proposals that are moving in that same vein. But she is a co-sponsor of Representative Wheeler that looks to give Class C and D felonies for educators who teach content that is quote unquote harmful for students. But that is a separate piece of legislation from House File 222. That
So
has not, yeah.
she is a co-sponsor.
Yes.
We
But
can.
I have not seen her bill come to subcommittee. My hope is that it does not. You know, like some of her bills has the same extreme vein that we've seen, unfortunately. So I don't know if it will come to subcommittee. My hope is that Chairman Height has a more understanding of what our goals should be when it comes to education policy than to push things like that forward.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. The question that we have now has quite a bit of background, but it's related to the child mental health services. Apparently they are still not being funded, and the question is the current committee are going to address it, or can we hear more on why this subject, meaning the funding for child mental health services, is not progressing this year?
I think part of it is understanding who the greatest provider of youth and adolescent brain health is, and that's typically our AEAs. Every year, just in standings, we usually take away about $15 million from our AEAs, and that's coupled with an additional $7.5 million reduction to their budget. So every year, the state typically removes about $22.5 million from the AEAs. Why that's really important is that, and this is kind of go back before we can jump forward, but the justification for getting our students back into school or having a 100% in-person option was to really deal with some of the trauma that our students are being exposed to due to COVID, right? We've seen increased rates of food insecurity, increased rates of suicide, increased rates of domestic abuse. And so in our school district, our public school districts, you know, those are the greatest providers of adolescent brain health. And, you know, our mandatory reporters are teachers. And so they're the first line of defense. But the AEAs are a strong, because they bring in the professionals who do occupational behavior therapy for our students. And when you continue to defund and cut those resources, how can you provide the services to a greater population, right? The need is growing, right, at an exponential rate, but the funding is dropping every year. That gap gets broader and broader, which is why we continue to see increased numbers of students going through traumatic experiences without being able to have those support services that are necessary. And so it's hard for us to fix this thing if we're not really trying to fix the foundation of what's really wrong. We can keep chasing the symptoms, but until the root cause it, I don't really see anything changing. And I don't, based on yesterday's budget that was passed through the House when it came to our school funding, I don't see a real fervor for the majority party to address the issue.
Roger, this is Bob.
Go ahead, Bob.
I know that Governor Reynolds took some of the CARES money that she got from the federal government, and those dollars were then addressed with the mental health services across the state. But again, that was one-time funding. It's my understanding there is possibly something, I know the governor probably has introduced some language, but the budget process is both the House and the Senate will have to agree on what the numbers are. And, you know, it's a significant chunk of money that we need to make sure is provided. You know, originally the bill that was passed last year created kind of the infrastructure, but did not provide any funding for that infrastructure. And that would be like some of your areas in the state that have don't really have services like for critical care access or early intervention. And Roz is accurate on the AEAs. They play a vital role in the classroom with regard to mental health services. So I'm hopeful that something goes. I'll be watching it really close. So
Is the situation that none of our current legislators who are on today's meeting are involved in that committee? Is that the issue we have here?
I don't serve on the committee, but I've worked here locally with mental health providers for a few years to get a pretty good understanding. I have not heard of that. I think Timmy, she's dealt with some of the issues. She serves on the statewide mental health board. So if she were here, she probably could help answer it a little more directly.
So the person who raised that question, it came off of Facebook, could contact Representative Brown Powers directly to see if he or she can get an answer.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good approach. Or Representative Fry, who's chair of the budget committee that would deal with that issue, would be another one for her to reach out to.
Okay, Fry, F-R-E-Y?
F-R-Y, I think it is, but you can go to the website, the legislative website, look up legislators, and
Okay,
I think he's in charge of the Health and Human Services Budget Committee. So that's where that will flow through.
any other person want to comment on the lack of funding for the child mental health services? If not, we have another question that might generate some response. Any chance of marijuana legislation this session? And if so, what?
I don't know. I'll just jump in. I don't know if there's a chance that it'll advance. I'm not optimistic about that, but there was an effort just before legislative session began with a group of legislators, both House and Senate, and some local elected officials across the state to bring some awareness to the issue and try to continue the conversation that this really is a human rights issue. It's we know that people of color are disproportionately impacted by the enforcement of marijuana laws, and we need to do something about that. So the conversation's going, but I'm not very hopeful that it's going to advance in this session. The majority party has kind of demonstrated they got other priorities right now.
Thank you, Senator Giddens. Anyone from the House have any perspective?
I've worked on that issue with the medical cannabis for several years. I have not heard. I do know that there's some bills that have been filed to decriminalize marijuana possessions of a certain amount, but I highly doubt that they will address that. I know South Dakota made it legal for recreational marijuana, but then I had heard that some of the judges in that state ruled it unconstitutional. So I don't know, but I was assigned a bill that deals with hemp. We passed a bill last year to allow farmers to grow hemp. We established the rules. Now the rules take place in March 3rd. So, currently, if you get products with CBD, they're not legal here in Iowa, but they're not enforcing it because the federal government has, allowed hemp use at the federal level, but states can decide what they're going to do. So, I'm hopeful that we can do more. I had the opportunity to talk to an individual at a meeting at the Capitol, And he was a retired pharmacist who had went to the University of Iowa in the 50s and graduated and served as that, and then had retired. He told me this, and I always thought this was an interesting comment, that if marijuana were discovered in the Amazon rainforest today and scientists were able to study it and determine its benefits, it would come back as a miracle drug. And of course, you know, it's got the stigma and the time that it was in the 70s, but you know, I'm hopeful that we can move forward with something.
I have to share the levity of this. We've had 2 comments come in regarding the marijuana issue, only if it's a joint session, and we're really getting into the weeds on this. So much for our levity. Dave Williams posted a contact on the chat for Representative Fry. So for that person who had the question about children's mental health funding, mental health program, that contact information for Representative Fry, as well as Representative Forbes, the ranking member, is in the chat box right now. I believe we have run out of comments, questions from the public. I'll scan through the list again to see if there's anything I missed. Yeah, I did miss one. Anyone that wants to weigh in on this? Do other legislators understand that the Education Voucher Initiative is primarily a part of an ideologically driven national effort being pushed by out-of-state conservative networks? And I don't know if any of the legislators want to weigh in on that or not, but I believe that's the last submission that I hadn't dealt with yet.
No, I think they know. I don't think they care. I think right. It's sometimes you get those bills that are paid, right? Those pieces of legislation that come across that are paydays. If you can get them passed in your state and you can campaign on them, get some campaign contributions. This is one that we've seen over and over and over again, right? It's always interesting when I see Walt Rogers at the Capitol, right? And so you know it's voucher time, but also that's part of his job. So for me, it's indicative that they know, but they don't care, and that's what we're battling up against.
Okay, anyone else?
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead, Representative Williams.
So, yeah, we see common language, right, coming up in state after state. So we know that's going on, and you know that's one reason to combat this. And then our own reasons. You know, public education is a foundation of democracy, and I don't consider myself to be a conspiracy theorist, but you know there is this talk that the people that are pushing this are interested in an oligarchic sort of government in the long run. That frightens me. That's one reason I'm here with you. So we have to keep fighting this.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Anyone else? Anyone else from the public that has? Can you type it in, Al? That's our method. You type it in on the chat box or on the Facebook comment section. Okay, we'll wait just a minute or two here to see if anybody else has a comment or a question they would like to submit. Okay, here's a good one. Is there a move to remove the guardrails and move forward to 2023 level regarding the tax cut bill that was passed a couple of years ago?
Can't speak for the
This is
Senate.
phase in, as I recall.
Right. That'll probably come up on the Senate side before the House. So I'll invite Senator Giddens to comment on that. I don't think any of the three of us are on Ways. However, I have not heard any chat about that. And going back to the point of, you asked us all to talk about tax cuts. The governor dropped her Invest in Iowa plan. So we haven't heard too much this year yet, but it's early. So hopefully they'll give up on that for this session, but it's too early to tell, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Sorry, I was just gonna say, I don't have anything to add from the Senate side. I've said earlier, I'm not on Ways and Means this year. I was last time, but I'm not now. And so don't have any early information, but yeah, just a kind of a reminder, I guess, of how the sessions sort of work is policy bills are handled in the first part of the session, and then we move into taxes and appropriations type work in the second half of the session. So like Representative Williams is saying, we're still kind of early for those discussions right now. And I haven't heard any, any chatter or anything early on related to that. So.
And since it's a Ways and Means issue, it bypasses the funnel structure, correct?
Correct.
Okay, if we have no further comment or question from the public, we'll go into closing remarks. You'll have up to 5 minutes for closing remarks. Use what you wish. And if we end early, that's okay too. We don't have to stay on all the way till the end of the second hour. So with that, we'll start closing comments. And I think I'll reverse the order that I did opening comments and let Representative Smith go first.
Oh, thank you all. I mean, I really enjoyed the conversation discussion. This is pretty eye-opening for us all, I think, to understand the significant things that are taking place at the Capitol and the pace in which they're happening. I'm often disappointed walking into the building, understanding the priorities of the majority party are not the people of Iowa right now. Having money in the bank is only good if you're going to spend it on things that are valuable. And if this is not a rainy day, I don't know what is. If waiting for the federal government to provide economic relief to our small businesses is the plan, I think that's a mistake because our people are hurting right now. And if we want to stop the cycle of hurt people hurting people, we have to take action. And I think that Democrats in the House and the Senate have proposed options that can move Iowa forward. I don't believe they've fallen on deaf ears. I believe that my peers have just turned their heads the other way as to not listen anymore. And I think that's really disappointing because our goals are to work collectively, because whether you're Democrat or Republican, COVID has impacted your quality of life in some way. And whether either you've lost someone, you've lost your livelihood, or your business is shrinking, you're worried about how to get your students back, your kids back into school, how to see your loved ones. It's a complex issue. It takes all of us collectively working together, and that's not really the atmosphere that we're in right now. I came into the legislature in 2017, and within the first 2 weeks, right, we had an abortion bill, we had collective bargaining, right, Chapter 20 in workers' comp. This is a year that I would say almost dwarfs that in the pace and with the constitutional amendments that we've seen right off the bat. And so we have to be prepared to continue to organize, to continue to engage people, to continue to sound the alarm every chance we get about what's taking place. And I would implore us all to have difficult conversations with the people that we have influence with, first and foremost. Relationships do matter. And if you want to make change, it starts with having difficult conversations with people who care about what the heck we have to say. Because we can talk to strangers until we're blue in the face, but if we can't have real critical conversations with our loved ones, with our friends and family, there's no hope to changing the mindset of strangers. And so I think we should start there, doing the work ourselves and in our own realm of influence. And if we all can do that, right, if we all chip in that small piece, yeah, I think we can have actually broad scale change. But it starts with us as individuals looking in the mirror every day, making a conscious effort to be better, to be courageous and have difficult conversations. So I look forward to doing that. I'll continue to fight and work hard at the Capitol alongside my peers here. I have a great support system. I think we work well collectively. And please know that Cedar Valley, we're working hard for you every day at the Capitol.
Thank you, Representative Smith. Representative Williams.
That is one tough act to follow. My goodness, I completely agree with Representative Smith on what we need to keep doing. I thought the pace was my perception. I had a few health issues in the last 3-4 weeks, but it has been a hectic pace, and I'm glad to have that confirmation that it's not only my perception. And it's amazing because I really thought that we would be hand-wringing and probably not getting much done, but at least talking about what to do about COVID. We're not even doing that. When I came into the legislature, we had discussions about environment, water quality, things like that going on. And I was afraid that would get set aside again this year because of COVID, but no. So those kind of policy, long-term thinking issues are third on the list behind the agenda that's been laid out for us, and then COVID behind that, and these other things I just mentioned. So I still remain hopeful. I'm going to keep working. To Representative Smith's part about working for the Cedar Valley, we have had a lot of constituent contact. I know all of us have this year. Maybe, at least in my experience, my brief experience, maybe Representative Cressy can reflect on this, but more contact than before from you all, which is good. That's one of the best parts of the job. So we will continue to keep working. It's early in the session. Next month, we'll have a chance to update you on some more of the bills. Might still be a little bit early for financial things, but we will have been through the funnel by then, I think, the first funnel. Is that right, team? So I look forward to catching up with you again in a month. And of course, we're all available anytime. Email is an easy way to reach out to us. That way you don't have to worry about the time of day or how to get in touch with us. So thank you all so much for participating, and let's stay in touch. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Just for clarity, the next forum is in 2 weeks on the 26th of February, and the topic is education.
That was my mistake. I'm sorry. Yes, it's 2 weeks. I was thinking of another Grove Cedar Valley Forum, which is on the 12th of March. So sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
Make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Representative Cressy. Closing remarks, please.
Okay, thank you to everybody. I think I got in my car last night to drive home, and this time of year is so unpredictable, and particularly this year is unpredictable weather-wise. But made it safely home, and thanks for the road crews that keep things safe so you can make it home. And so I was happy to make it home safely. Yeah, as far as some issues, I serve on the Transportation Committee, and just want to share with you the hands-free bill is moving forward. And I get a sense it has strong support on the floor. So we're probably going to see that that take place. I'd also share too is, we have the policy committees and we have the budget committees, and we've really been, I think Monday or Tuesday, we ran several, I think it was like 17, 18 bipartisan bills out of the committee, on the floor, had a vote. So we're moving bills forward. And then the next process will be budgets, and they'll probably be around the corner. I know that the first funnel is 2 weeks from now, and that means that a bill has to pass out of a committee to be still eligible for floor debate. So moving forward with that, my real concern is that if the majority party refuses to begin to address the issues of the pandemic, we're just going to have so many unknowns, and there are people waiting for answers. And I'd also share the vaccinations. We're currently 47th in the nation with regarding access to vaccines. And I've had several emails, phone calls from people wanting to get access to the vaccination. So hopefully we'll start seeing more come in. I also know that they have a plan to include additional pharmacies in the state to get the access out. So hopefully we can just hang in there and make through this, you know, wear a mask, social distance. It'll keep you safe, and it'll keep others safe. So I appreciate the time today, and please, if you have questions, reach out to me by email. I also am on Facebook and Twitter. Those are all accessible. And if you'd like to get access to my newsletter, you can go to the legislature, and there's a link that you can click on. So, or you can send me an email and I can send you the link. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kresick. And finally, we're back to Senator Giddens. Closing remarks, please.
Thanks, Roger. Looks like we got 20 minutes. I'll try to not take 20 minutes of your time. It's been a pleasure to be with you all this evening, though, and for those folks that are watching on Facebook, appreciate you tuning in, and for those that see this later, very grateful for all the organizations that come together to put on these forums here in Blackhawk County. There's I think Bob's mic might not be muted. I don't know if, but anyway, this is it takes work to do this, and I know all of us are very grateful that you put these on. So you know, it's tough sometimes being in the minority. Some days it feels like our job is to try to just make things that we think are bad stuff a little bit less bad in the process, you know, the sausage making process, so to speak. But there is some value in that work, and it is an honor to be able to do this. And then on the positive side of things, you know, it's not said enough, I think, that the majority of the bills that we pass out of the legislature are completely bipartisan legislation. And so it really is a pleasure to be able to do that kind of work, to just enact good policy for the state. And I don't want it to sound like all we do is bicker and fight. I want to remind people that we do a lot of good bipartisan work in the legislature. So I've got one bill. I won't go into detail, but it's just an example of that. There's an energy efficiency financing mechanism that I'm working on, kind of in the background with a couple of Republican legislators in the Senate that we're getting a little bit of traction on, and I'm hopeful that we could possibly move that forward, you know, this year. If not this year, maybe next year. But some projects are multi-year projects, and you know, if that one were to go through, it would have the sort of impact to save lots and lots of energy across the state, and really pump a lot of private investment in energy efficiency and renewable energy into the state, and support businesses that do that type of work. So anyway, there are some good positive things going on, and I just want to remind people of those things that we do as well. You know, back to the point of we are in a pandemic. We've got a ways before we get out of it, and our job as legislators isn't just to go to Des Moines and write laws and try to get those passed, but we also, as Representative Williams said, we do a lot of constituent services, just doing our best to represent our constituents and help folks navigate state government, especially at a time like this. You know, it's become really, really apparent that, you know, we can help folks get connected to people that can help them in our state government, and sometimes not in state government. But if folks are going through any sort of issue that they could use some assistance with, we invite you to reach out to us. We are here to help. That's what we signed up to do, and we want to do that. So Representative Kressig mentioned the various ways you can get in touch with us. We all, you know, have a variety of different ways that you can find us, and we hope that you will. I hope that folks stay warm and safe this weekend. Looks like we've got another solid week of bitter cold temperatures. So take care, stay safe, and we will look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Senator Giddens. And I want to echo his thanks to the 24, 25, whatever it is, community organizations that sponsor this forum. I also want to thank a couple of people individually. Jean Seeland is the one who heads this up, and she does a lot of the preparation for these. Obviously, Sherry and Mike Dargan for arranging not only the Zoom hookup, but also the Facebook hookup. Our timekeeper, Joan Webster-Vore, our question screener, Augusta Sires. Thank you to all, and thank you to our 4 legislators, not only for participating tonight, but for all that you do every day, all season long, all session long, all season long. Actually, the session ends, but your work as a legislator continues on. So thank you again. With that, I believe we're ready to adjourn. Have a good evening and be safe and warm this weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Good
Thank
to
you.
see you.